What is going on, boys and girls of YouTube? We're back at it, dropping another video. Today I'm covering the top 5 gods you should be playing for season 10 to carry, basically from your role. So we got a support, mid, a jungle, an ADC, a solo. Doing this because I've gotten the same question over and over and over about solo and support. What god should I play to carry my rank games? So we're going to talk about the situation you're going to try to put yourself in and the gods you're going to play and why they're going to excel and how you're going to make them excel. So that's simple, very easy. I'm gonna get right into it. Make sure you guys are hitting the like button to make sure you're subscribing. I have to talk about this. It's been many videos since I've even mentioned, hey, subscribe. If you are watching these videos, hitting the like button is the bare minimum you can do. I understand a lot of you guys are lazy. Me too. I don't do it a lot until someone reminds me. I'm gonna remind you all the time. Hit the like button, drop a comment, hey, what's up, ask a question, request some kind of content. All of it perfectly awesome, or just you know, tell me what you did today in Smite. Anything, let me know, and let's get into this. Let's just talk about it. With support, because I think that's the most asked. While maybe support's not the most played role, it's definitely the most asked about how to carry and what should I carry. But we're not going with a guardian. None of these guardians are going to be your go-to to actually carry from the support role. Your best option at doing that is a warrior, and it's Horus. And the reason for Horus is because, especially after his buffs, if you didn't know, his 3 got reduced down to a much lower cooldown. Don't know why Horus did it, but they did. So Horus can be hyper aggressive up in anyone's face while having this heal out, which is a disengage, because you're gonna heal to your teammate. You're gonna go in, hit the enemy, and then heal back to your teammate, disengage, right? So you're one of the safest and most aggressive gods in Smite, period, especially from the support role. On top of that, all of your abilities do something that either set you up, set your team up, or set everybody up, right? Your 2, if you didn't know, is a protection reduction. So as you rank up this 2 to max rank, when you hit somebody, it takes away 30 protections from them. That's kind of ridiculous, especially since you have 2 major single target abilities that are going to lock somebody down and basically set up you and your teammate to do damage. This ability alone is going to give you an advantage a lot of the time in the early game in random 1v1s, which is going to give you the opportunity to carry. It's not going to guarantee you're carrying. That's going to require perfect farm, good rotations, everything else. But these abilities will set up you to play as a second jungler for the first 12 or so levels. And that's where the value and the carry comes in, right? You being able to reduce protection, stun somebody, then knock them up out of it into that 1 is guaranteeing that 1 person dies. This is also going to excel for you later in the game, into the late game, because it's going to be a target caller. Essentially, your team is going to see you stun somebody. They're going to know, hey, a knockup is coming up off of this. I can hit this guy for that 3-second window. There's very few gods like that. Like, yes, there are gods that have a stun or whatever, but reacting to a single stun is difficult. Reacting to a stun into a knockup is very easy. So that's going to be hyper valuable. In lane, for the early game, for the first couple levels, you have a ton of lane pressure because you're able to clear the creeps while also hitting the enemy gods and returning damage. And then when they're hitting you and trying to poke, you have heal to sustain through it. While it's not the best heal in the world, it is also giving protections, so it's making you tankier. It is a very good sustain option for lane. That is why Horus is 100% your go-to. And when we're talking about builds, you don't really need to build like a carry. As support, you're never going to truly be a 30-0 one-shotting everybody carry. It's not going to happen. That is not how Smite is set up currently. It will probably never be set up like that. I don't see how it's doing it. But for your builds, you're just going really standard traditional stuff. If you want to be aggro fighty, you can go into a war flag and it actually doesn't feel bad. It feels pretty good because you're getting power out of it. Problem is, or sorry, not getting power out of it, you're getting attack speed and movement, so you're getting more damage out of the starter over the core, over sentinels or benevolence. Sentinels and benevolence are gonna be heavy defensive, keep your teammates alive the whole game. War flag is gonna get heavy offensive, so I like war flag, but I do think sentinels and benevolence are overall gonna be your better starters. You're then gonna build into your, I guess I should grab these. I'm just gonna throw the war flag in there so you have an option. Plus it'll spice up any thumbnails or anything we end up using. I go into prophetic cloak every time. I just think it's broken. And on Horus, your goal is to run around and just 2-1 people over and over and over. So building prophetic stacks is easy. It's a joke. It's absolutely just cake. I don't go into Gauntlet of Thieves because I want to be rotating around the map. I don't want to be focused on getting farm from lane. I don't want to leech from everybody. That's another thing that's going to allow you to set up a carry role. You're going to get your farm from ganking and fighting and being everywhere and invading and everything else, not just from sitting in a lane farming, which is what Gauntlet of Thieves is kind of setting up to do. So I like to go into Sav. I then like to grab my magical defense. If you need anti-heal, I just go into Pestilence here. If you don't need anti-heal, grabbing a Heart Ward amulet and upgrading this Heart Ward amulet into a amulet of Stronghold will make it so you don't need any more magic defense, right? At this point, you're sitting at a very, very healthy amount of defense. This is without your starter upgraded. You're already sitting at almost 200 with these items, and it's not even giving you the amulet stacks. So your magic defense will be really, really high. Prophetic will be stacked almost guaranteed by this point. And then you can go in to start getting items that you specifically need. If you want to be more carry-esque and less, you know, playing to do damage into the late game, you can swap these two out. This is something you do a lot for cooldown. It's going to allow you to spam a little bit more. If you do this, you're sitting at 20% cooldown. The amulet covers everything else. I like to go into a more, you know, I want to be annoying and do a little bit more damage. I go to the Glad Shield. This is going to keep your defenses very, very high. And at this last point, something along the lines of, I really, really like going into a Rune Forge. I don't think it's the best item in the game, but I think when you're trying to carry and set up guaranteed kills, this item is going to be it. Plus, it's going to set you up with 2 damage items. You're going to be good on cooldown at this point in the game. You're going to be pretty good on defense at this point of the game, even without the Heart Ward actually stacking here. Okay, it was stacking here. I don't know, the stats on the side here are bugged. It's really weird. With everything stacked, you'll be very close to cap defense and open to this damage item, and the Rune Forge will set you up. So that's going to be your full build on Horus. Next up, second role that people are just, I swear, I don't know if it's people are confused or it's because high res is messed with so much. The next role that people are messing with and they're confused about what's carry on, solo. Right now, I think you can play a lot more than normal, right? You can play mages and it's not that weird, but it's because of how strong mages are and how strong hunters are. But that doesn't discredit this god, and this god will just get better as they nerf mages and hunters, which is inevitable. It's coming. It's Hercules. And the reason for it being Hercules is they buffed Hercules 1 and it's 2. Yeah, 1 is 2. It's on shorter cooldowns. You can see they're on 11-second cooldowns now, matched and paired. So with cooldown, which you have in your kit built in because you're a warrior, plus your items, your 1 and your 2 are spammable. You become one of the stronger gods in the game. Yes, you're a healing god, and yes, people are building anti-heal, but remember, your 3 gives you protections as well and gives you a ton of healing as you're spamming it on a shorter cooldown because you'll be sitting on full cooldown. You hit very, very hard. You are one of the few lane bullies right now, as well as a heavy exploiting god on, you know, you being better than the enemy that you're playing against in lane, which is rare in the solo lane. Usually in the solo lane, it's a lot of back and forth. Yeah, you might get ganked, this and that. Hercules has the potential to 1v2 consistently. Anyone walks up too far or just, you know, gets out of position, you hit a 2 into a 1 into the tower, guaranteed kill. So you have pressure while getting pressure into your tower, and you also have pressure while owning the lane and controlling it. That is what's so strong about Hercules. Then you get into these team fights, which are easy for you to rotate to, by the way, because of your items and because of your heal. You're able to move around the map very, very quickly. You become an absolute force in team fights when nobody wants to kill you. Obviously, in the hyper late game, as a warrior, you will die to very high damage hunters and mages. That's because of where they're at. That's because of where they're sitting. But at the same time, you still pump out a fair amount of damage, and at the late stages in the game, if you have the advantage that you should have, considering you're trying to carry and you are probably the better player in the lobby, you will be perfectly fine up until like 50 minutes, and then you might start running into some trouble. So for the Hercules solo builds, it's gonna depend on your matchups. You have to remember that it depends on what you're playing against is going to change how you're building. Your starters are going to be really one of 3 things. You're going to be looking at Tainted Steel if the enemy has healing and you want the anti-heal. You're going to be looking at Warding Sigil if you are just trying to be a heavy tank god and just rely on your base damage, which is perfectly fine with Hercules. You've got Warrior's Axe, which is going to be a little bit more damaging and potentially give you a little bit more kill, like possibly give you a little bit more kill potential. Not guaranteed. And then Bluestone's been nerfed enough that I really don't think you're putting any time or effort into these Bluestones, so I wouldn't worry about Bluestone too much. I'd say most of the time you're probably going to play against some form of a healer, so be looking for Tainted Steel as core, and if it isn't a healer, I'd be looking at Warrior's Axe just to give you a little bit more sustain into the Sundering Axe. I just think it's very, very strong, and I think people are undervaluing it right now heavily. If you're against a physical god, your first item is going to be a Mail of Renewal. The Mail of Renewal is going to give you that movement off of your 3. It's going to give you cooldown, health, and defense. So it's just hyper value, right? It's insane amount of value from that item. If it's a physical jungler on top of the physical solo, you're going to be looking at a Glad Shield. The reason you're doing this is because all damage coming to your lane should be physical damage you'll be taking. This will set you up to 1v2 very, very easily while giving you more cooldown. Putting your 1 or your 2 on a very, very short cooldowns. They're not very expensive items, 2,300 each. Plus the survivability you're getting from the movement off of the 3. If the mid laner is rotating a lot, that is when you want to watch out. And remember, you mainly have physical defense at this stage. You're sitting on 170 physical procs. It'll be pretty early in the game though. So avoid a little bit of magic if possible. At the same time, you are sitting on a decent amount of magical procs because you're a base warrior. Still just insanely just strong at this stage. Then we're looking at magic. If your support is not building a Heartward Amulet, Amulet of Stronghold. Heartward and Amulet of Stronghold. This is what you want to go. It'll be your only magical defense item. It'll cap you out. Be good to go. Nothing to worry about, right? It looks a little bit like the support build, but not exactly the same. Similar. Very, very similar. Now, this is where the new items come into play. Sekhmet Scepter is absolute. I don't know what's up with the cooldown not showing, by the way. It's super off. I don't know why. Sekhmet Scepter is a ridiculously strong item. Now, this build specifically, I want to specify, this is for you to be as tanky as possible while still being able to carry. If you're confident in your matchups and you know what you're doing, move this Sekhmet up to this position. Move the Stronghold over to the left. So essentially it would look something like this. You would move Sekhmet into first. The reason you want to go this first is because it's going to give you power. It's going to be a little bit less tanky, and you are not going to have the survivability. So you'll be playing around being a better player and it being early game. You go in this item, you have to worry about ganks. You have to worry about, you need to be warding. You need to be paying attention. You can't be overextending. You will be squishier than you want to be when you go this item. That's why I showed you the tank build first, to remember that is a build you can go. This is an insanely strong build though, because of how good Sekhmet Scepter is. If you don't know what this item is, you need to learn. Sekhmet Scepter gives you power, health, cooldown, MP5. When you heal, you proc Sekhmet Scepter. When it's procced, every time you do damage, up to, I think it's up to 3 times, through an ability, through auto, whatever, to a god, it reduces your cooldowns on everything that's on cooldown and stuff for your ultimate. So it allows for you to get your 3 back up. It allows you for you to use your 1 a second time, your 2 a second time. If you 1, 2, then 3, and then hit somebody 3 times, all your abilities are going to come right back up. So it's insanely strong. And then if you are doing that, you do want to go into the Breastplate of Regrowth at this stage, make you a little bit tankier, give you more cooldown. You'll be sitting at 20%. And this is pretty much going to cover you besides that Glad Shield on your cooldown. You're going the Amulet of the Stronghold at this stage, and that's because you need magic defense. You are only sitting on a Breastplate and a Warrior's Axe, but you want to have this online here unless they're light magic. If they're light magic, you can push this over 1 more. Go into the Glad Shield right here. That's going to set you up. And then at this stage, you are good on cooldown. You're capped. You are very, very tanky, especially as soon as you... I don't know why that keeps happening. Especially as soon as you finish your starter. And you upgrade that Warrior's Axe to a Sundering Axe. You got a lot more defenses, but you are fairly squishy still at this stage. So you're going to be looking at getting anything possible for mitigations. You want to take less damage overall, which is going to be Spirit Robe will overcap you, but it'll give you good mitigations. If they have heavy magic and you want to cap out your magic, you can go into the Oni Hunter's Garb to get some mitigations. This last item is really up in the air for you. If you're trying to carry, a very good item to go is Stone of Binding, because with this build you are doing a lot of damage because you have so much cooldown. The Stone of Binding is going to give you Pen, which is going to round out your entire build because you've got damage while being super tanky because of your base damage. And it's going to give you health, it's going to give you protections, it's going to give you a little bit of really just everything you need. You need the physical, you need the magical, you need the health, and the proc. It's all just insanely valuable. Plus, you're proccing that Stone of Binding very easily between your 2 or your 1. So at that stage, you're good to go. Hercules, Probably the scariest soul laner to deal with overall, in my opinion, right now, and really bullies out everyone who's building mages and all these other squishy gods in that lane. Hercules just absolutely slaughters the lane against everybody. It's not even close. I did forget to cover one thing. If you're against the magical and you need to be, you want to go for survivability, you can build early magical, but it's not necessary. If I'm against a magical god, if it's poking me heavily, I'm still going to go into Sekhmet. I think Sekhmet is going to be your bully potential for that lane. Because at this stage, you need to play around avoiding the damage, not just running at the mage over and over again. You are then probably going to grab that magic defense early. And if you're grabbing magic defense early, you're almost never going Heart Ward. If it's a healer, like a Baron, or someone who's playing against lifesteal, so say it's a Hebo going lifesteal, whatever, Pestilence is what you're going to be looking at this stage. Straight up. It's just that simple. And then if you aren't looking for anti-heal, I would go into the Onis. And the Onis is where we were talking about a really good item for mitigations. This is going to keep you alive all the time. It's going to delay a little bit of cooldown, but it's not going to matter. You're just going to go ahead, and go into the rest of those items. I don't know why I always click on that item when I'm trying to show anything. And then I would round out that build, and I would get the Son of Binding all day, every day. This would be what I'd swap up if I was going to go against mage. If you found yourself struggling against mages and you can't figure out what you're doing, I'll tell you two things. Move the Onis to where Sekhmet is and move Sekhmet over. And then stop eating every single ability. Start focusing on dodging any AoE abilities that are possible. If it's a Baron, you shouldn't be getting hit by the 2-1 cooldown. If it's a Hebo, you shouldn't be getting hit by the 1 while he's also clearing the wave. That is very, very important. And if you're starting to do that, your laning phase will go easier. Then once you get to the regrowth, you're able to rotate to the mid lane or wherever you want, or TP over, because you should be upgrading your TP fairly early, probably right after Sekhmet or maybe after your Onis, fully upgrade it, and then just start TPing over and start looking for fights, because that is where Hercules will excel, and it's that simple. So we've done support, we've done solo. Now I want to do our hunters, and hunters, I don't think people are really confused by this. So Marticarus is probably the best hunter in the game. But for carrying, I truly believe Ishtar is the better god to be consistent with. Because when you're being focused, having no mobility on Marticarus can be very, very difficult. And Ishtar has CC immune ult, has a dash movement ability, has self peel, has turn ability, and then just has massive range damage to sit safely in the back. And that's why she's going to excel. Crit right now is king, and Ishtar with the abilities with her 1. If you pop her 1 and someone's in front of you and you 1-2, so that's where it does the AoE cone autos, those crits hit on every single auto, and that damage is so high, it's insane. And at the same time, if you use your 1 and then your 3, that's the long range autos, you're able to 3-shot squishies from so far away that nobody can return damage, nobody can poke back, you're not out of position while doing it. So that gives her just an insane advantage in the game right now. I have a new hunter build I've been running, and I really, really like it. Now, I'm not saying the pro builds are probably still optimized for what they're doing. This build for ranked potentially is better just for you to win all of your 1s, all of your 1v1s. I have loved it. It's been nuts. So you're going to go Gilded Arrow into Ornate Arrow, which is your crit arrow that was just buffed. You're then going to go into Lifesteal, which is kind of a standard build already. Nothing's crazy about this. This is where it gets crazy. Going into Griffin Wing. Griffin Wing is 2,200 gold. All right. Very, very, very cheap. Insanely cheap. Has 55 power, which rivals pretty much every item you're going to go except for Bloodforge, which has 75. I think, unless they nerfed it. Let me double check. Still at 75. But it's cheaper. And then it has attack speed, which is some of the highest attack speed in the game on an item. Then you have MP5, so your sustain is pretty much infinite. At this point, it really doesn't matter because you have the arrow anyway. And then this passive. This passive is not core at all. But the advantage it gives you is so slight, but also so strong that people don't realize it. When you get into 1v1 with somebody, especially, another hunter, but also, a jungler who's diving on you, the travel time is shortened on your autos with this passive, which makes it easier to hit in general, right? It's just a little bit easier to hit. But that's not the big thing. The big thing is once you pair this with your attack speed, once you're getting, you're just about at cap attack speed, if not at cap with purple buff, the instant travel damage gets to be so overwhelming and chaotic for the person you're hitting that they overreact or they don't react in time because they're not expecting it. It is not a traditional build. They're not used to the item. This item pretty much guarantees you win every one, especially on Ishtar, because when you 1 and then 3, that long range auto, it also travels faster. So not only does it travel faster, it travels super fast because you also have this Griffin wing. Then you're going to build into crit. We're going to go Demon Blade. If you're having a good game, so if you're on par or ahead, you're going to go into Deathbringer here. That Deathbringer is going to be upgraded into an Envenom Deathbringer, which now has anti-heal on it, which is OP. And then I end the build with a Dominance, which is going to give you your pen. So Demon Blade has 10% pen when it procs. Dominance is going to give you all the pen on your autos that you need because you're really playing around your autos, not your abilities. It's giving you more attack speed. It literally like every single stat you need. With purple buff, like I said, you're gonna be right around that cap attack speed. With Ornate Arrows stacked up, your crit is gonna be pretty much guaranteed crits. You'll out trade everybody, and I have not lost a single game with this build. This build is ridiculous. I'm running it on everybody. I've been running it on Neath. I've been running it on so many people and so many roles. It's ridiculous. Hyper recommend. And then outside of that, the God wins lane. You have the fastest clear in the game because of your 1-1, which is the volley autos. Fastest clear in the game because of that. Nobody can out clear you. If you're wanting to play safe, you have the ability to play safe because you're CC immune ult because you're dash. If you want to play aggressive, you can do the same thing for the same reason. You can be aggressive with the CC immune ult, which is going to cripple stun, and then you could also use that dash to avoid damage and just return damage to chase people. Ishtar's probably the most over-kitted god when you're playing her correctly and you're using the 1 correctly. If you aren't using the 1 correctly, it's probably why you're not doing well on her. Or sorry, if you aren't doing well on her, it's probably because you aren't using the 1 correctly. So get better with that. Practice that. Learn the circumstances when the 1 should be, which use of the 1 you need to use. And you will find a lot of success with Ishtar. Until crit meta changes, Ishtar's not going to fall off. And even once it does change, she probably still won't fall off. So next up is our mage. This god has had an insane year. Insane year. It's Morgan Le Fay. So if you're trying to carry from mid, Morgan Le Fay is 100% the go-to. A few reasons. He reverted her nerfs, so she's basically back to the same way she was when she was OP, like heavily universally considered OP. She's pretty much back where she is. On top of mage items, and mages in general are better than they've ever been in a while. So mages are peaking. This god was sent back to being OP, and that's what put her where she is. Now the reason, like what is happening with her, why you're playing her. She has some of the best clear and best AoE poke. She has 3 damaging abilities on her core kit, and then her ultimate is a damaging ability. So she has 4 damaging abilities. She has CC and self peel on her 1, CC and self peel on her 2. Very high damage on both of these. And then her 3 gives her movement, gives her a ton of damage. Is pretty much impossible to miss if you're at all decent at aiming because the end of it has an AoE proc, so it doesn't have to direct hit. It can just hit right next to somebody. And with junglers playing the way they are, wanting to dive, this god has the self-peel and the kit to turn anyone diving on her, which is rare for a mage. Yes, there are mages that can kill people on top of them, but she can do it without using an ult, without using a core ability. And because of the low cooldowns, it's pretty much always guaranteed. The damage you get off these abilities is just crazy. You're talking about 11-second cooldown on the 1 before you build cooldown items, which you get a starter for cooldown. Your 2 is on a 12-second cooldown. So these are similar to the Hercules cooldowns that were just created. And then your 3 is on a 13-second cooldown. While your ultimate isn't even on that long of a cooldown either. It's on a 90-second cooldown. So with CDR, you're talking about like a 50-second cooldown on the ult. You're talking about like a 6-second cooldown on the 1, a 7-second cooldown on the 2, a 7-ish second cooldown on the 3. She can spam, right? She can guarantee lane win. She has early pressure, early clear, and the ability to fight in lane at level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Her ranged ultimate guarantees she can dive with the squishies, and she can throw all of her abilities over walls virtually. Like really her 1 and her ult are the big things I'm talking about, not her 2 or 3. But her 1 and her ult going over walls gives her that value over the walls. It's just the damage she creates that's instant on such a short cooldown that isn't really matched very easily. And the utility she gains, like the movement from her 3, the self peel, the ultimate, she's dancing around, she's CC immune, she heals herself. This all stacks up to create one of the scariest mages we've seen. On top of her being scary, she's very easy to play. Her ultimate is super easy to land. Her 1 is nearly impossible to miss. I already talked about her 3. And then her 2, you're basically saving the self-peel in case anyone dives on you. It's ridiculous. Now for mage builds, you're kind of in a state right now with mages that you can go any of the builds. I do not recommend going into Book of Thoth and into tablet anymore. That build really has fallen off for ranked. It's pretty much pointless because you're fighting so much and rotating that a build like this, where you're going into Sands of Time, Doom Orb is going to create a lot of value. You're then looking for Power Pen cooldown, so you're going to Spirit Desolation. That can be a Divine Ruin. If you need anti-heal, that is where you build a Divine Ruin. Then you're building a Spirit Magus, which has Pen now. So does Doom Orb. So you're sitting on 20% Pen. You're sitting on some flat Pen from Spirit Desolation. You have 20% cooldown right now. You'll have 30% when you cap out that Sands of Time. You're then going to go into Rada Tahuti. This Rada Tahuti is going to set you up for 30% Pen. You really don't need to go 40% if you don't want to. And it's going to give you a ton of damage. And then you're going to round out the build with a Soul Reaver. Soul Reaver is going to add to your poke. This build is going to stomp everybody. Frontline, backline, squishies. There's nothing wrong with this build at all. There's no flaw in this build whatsoever. The biggest thing is if you need Divine Ruin, you delay getting more cooldown. So with the starter and Spirit of Deso, you hit cap cooldown. You can swap it up if you really want to. If you change it and this you go Divine here, you could change Soul Reaver into a Soul Gem. So if this is a Divine, you shift it over to Divine. You shift this item over to a Soul Gem. That way you get another proc, but you swap out that cooldown and you change out that cooldown. This build's just as good. You will not see much of a difference between these two builds. They will both perform exactly as you need to. It's because all the mage items are so overtuned right now. So that's what you're going to be looking for your mages. And then I saved Assassin for last because I feel like this is obvious. It's Mercury. Crit is OP. We talked about with the Hunter. Crit is king right now. Mercury is one of the only assassins in the game that can play around crit and it still be the traditional way he needs to play and he's supposed to be played. He farms better than everybody, and the items on top of his mid, early, and late game damage is just kind of unmatched. His farming is unmatched. The build, I think everyone at this point knows the build. Eye of the Jungle is one of the best starters in the game now. They buffed the hell out of it, and it's already your go-to. So you got Eye of the Jungle, you got Golden Blade. You go right into some crit at this point in the game, getting yourself a Rage. You can then go into some Lifesteal, get yourself a Serrated, give you a Pen, give you more movement, which is going to make your rotations, your farm, and everything even better. Your team fights even better. Then you're going to go into that Deathbringer, into the Envenom Deathbringer, because it's going to give you anti-heal, which was something Mercury never had and always struggled at building. So they made him even better when they added anti-heal to Envenomed instead of its old passive. They just swapped it out. And then your last item is where you get to choose whether you want to go Bloodforge to have a reset potential, whether you want to go more Pen at this stage of the game, which is perfectly fine, or you want to grab a defensive item like a Magi's Blessing. Those are all your options here, and none of them are wrong. Bloodforge is probably going to be the most consistent for hard carrying. Then in the late game, you're going to sell that Golden Blade, and it's going to be the whatever items you didn't go. It's going to be your Magi's Blessing if you need a defensive. It's going to be an Erendite if you just want cooldown and more power. This item will allow you to pretty much one-shot guaranteed off of an ultimate. You can also go into Hydras for the same reason and get just that guaranteed big crit damage. Or you could be crazy and go into more lifesteal. This slot is just completely up to you and what you need. You don't really need anything in this build guaranteed. Like, there's no item in this build that's a must purchase. It's more of how you feel and how you're playing and what's going to work for you in the specific game you're in. Go whatever item you want in that slot. Pretty much can't go wrong. I keep Golden Blade until late game. A lot of time I'll get a 3k pot before I sell the Golden Blade. It's 100% changed based on the match and how the match is playing out. I think you guys know why Mercury's good. Now that you know all the other gods that play, I hope you guys go start exploiting and winning on these gods. Have fun, do your thing. Hopefully the builds help. Smite source is being updated. I'm getting help getting everything updated. So any other gods that you end up wanting to play, those builds are going to be there. But most of those gods outside of Mercury really don't even get banned too much. So you should be able to play all of them whenever you want. And that's that. Hope you guys liked the video. Hit the like button if you did. Make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you in the video tomorrow, the next day, and the next day.